tonight. Drew was not watching tonight, unfortunately, had something going on. So he's going to be back on soon, but it's just me tonight. I actually might be busy coming up soon, too. So you might see Drew in a solo pod at some point. But regardless, we do got Drew in the chat still as well. So that is awesome. I see a few of you popping in the chat here already. Thank you guys for tuning in. Really good win. Well, a feel good win, but that being said, I mean, not a great win. I'll say that much, but it doesn't matter. You just have to rack up wins as the season goes along. Um, I'm still gonna I'm still gonna be excited about it because it is a win at the end of the day. There are some things I'm gonna complain about too because the offense was really lacking for most of the game, and I'm really disappointed they also wasted Turnbull's start to where he doesn't even get to win in this one. Another reason, look, pitcher wins just do not matter. Terrible stat. But point being, still a win. And there were a number of bright spots in this one. I thought we were going to win the game 3-1. I mean, that's just how the game felt like it was going. And then the Cardinals surged back there in the ninth. There's not much you can do about that, unfortunately, when Hoffman's throwing the pitches he was throwing. He just did not have it tonight. We're going to talk about him too. But let me get to a few of these comments before we're getting into the game here. Drew, good to see you, man. Looking forward to having you back on. But he says, big dub. Absolutely, man. And Chris says, love Phillies wins. You got to. Can't go wrong. I mean, look, obviously, much better than the alternatives. So, and Ian says, feels good too. Absolutely. Absolutely. Welcome in, Ian. And Drew said, would be doing the pod with Hunter, but I was busy and didn't get to watch. All good, Drew. Totally understand. And you've been on here pretty much every post game this year. So do not worry about it at all. You've been on here more than I think I even have. So, because I think I missed the one Reds game that I was at. So appreciate you, Drew. But still glad to have you in the chat and looking forward to getting you back on next pod. But Ian, like you said, it wasn't the prettiest, but the W's always feel good. Absolutely. You don't want the alternative. They get the win. Like David said, nice win for the Titans. Chris says offense for the bottom of the lineup. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think through like 5 innings or so, I think the top of the order was 1 for 10, and the only hit was the Trey Turner hit. And the bottom of the order was like 6 for 10. So that was the story of this game. Absolutely. I mean, that was where our offense was coming from, even in the extra innings, too. You saw it there. Bryson Stott gets a guy in on the sac fly as well, but and boom too. Like, he's not a top 4. I guess tonight he was a top 4 guy because JT was out, but beside the point anyway. I mean, you see a lot of these guys at the bottom of the lineup coming through in big spots. So you love to see that. Also shout out Pasha. I mean, he comes in, a single probably would have scored him in that situation. So shout out to Bohm for getting it down the line too. It gave me flashbacks to game 2 NLDS in St. Louis in Busch Stadium. Bohm hits one to left field down the line, gets a double. I believe he ended up scoring on it as well. And Arenado right before that it was the ninth. He, obviously before the Cardinals rallied, he just struck out on a Hoffman slider. So, and that reminded me of the game 2 of the NLDS, or no, sorry, NL wildcard, because it felt like Bohm kind of outperformed Arenado in those 2 games. I'm not saying he's better, but you're getting flashbacks to that, especially when Bohm hits a double down the line there. So you love to see that. Sully says Marshall on pace for that 25 bomb season. Maybe. I mean, yeah, he has that potential. I think he's probably I think his max might be 20, but I'm not saying he can't hit 25. I mean, it's just from what we've seen, I don't need him to hit 25, but could I see him doing that at some point with how he's hitting the baseball? Yeah, because he's not only hitting to the opposite part of the field, he's hitting to the opposite part of the field with power too. So some of those baseballs are just going to get out. We're going to talk about Marsh. There was a number of significant moments with Marsh tonight. So, and David, like you said, Turnbull has been an amazing addition so far. He's been such a bright spot. I think that's a good place to start. So Turnbull, man, I mean, he gives up 3 base runners tonight, no runs, 6 Ks. The guy has been incredible through his first 2 starts. 11 scoreless so far in a Phillies uniform. I want to say he has 13 Ks in a Phillies uniform too, in just 2 starts. I mean, the Reds and Cardinals, obviously not the best lineups in the league, but it's Major League Baseball. And he certainly looks like he is much better than he was coming off of that Tommy John originally last year. He also had some other injuries last year too. That shouldn't go. We shouldn't go on without noting that. But Turnbull, I think his sweeper is really, really good. That's been a very noticeable pitch for him. But he's also just got a good pitch mix too, right? Like he has 4 or 5 pitches that all play well. Now, I'd prefer his fastball velocity gets to where it was before Tommy John, sure, but it kind of looks like it's settling around 93 right now. But when he's using his off speed and his breaking pitches to set up the fastball, as Amaro noted on the broadcast, I'm not super concerned with the velocity because it's still going to get on them in a hurry. And I think that's been the story of him so far. We'll see as hitters adjust throughout the season what the approach is versus him and if it's sustainable or not. Time will tell. But I'm also curious to see what happens when Walker is healthy now, because I think Walker will get inserted back into the rotation regardless, just because they believe in him. They paid him a contract that shows they believe in him. They still maintain that belief going into this year too. I am personally not a huge believer in his ability. I think he eats innings for you in the regular season. I don't think he's a playoff pitcher, and he hasn't been in his career so far because of, obviously, last year it was the first couple innings, the issues there with the velocity and everything. He's not been a great pitcher in the second half of seasons the past few years, but I really like Turnbull right now and the way he's pitching. So I don't know, man. I mean, he's definitely going to be a really valuable bullpen piece at the very least. If they go 6-man at some point, he will absolutely be a valuable piece too. They've already gotten their money's worth from the first 2 games he's pitched, but I'm very, very impressed with not just the numbers and the results, but the way he's approaching every single game so far. I really like what he's done. Turnbull, I mean, he gets an A+ from me tonight. Obviously, he probably could have gone at least another batter or two. He was at 82 pitches, but I also think, look, you have him coming off of a couple of injury-filled seasons, obviously completely lost one because of Tommy John. You have him getting his confidence back right now. I'm okay with taking him out at 82. And again, maybe one batter or two. Obviously, it's going to get criticized because Sir Anthony comes in there, gives up the home run. We will talk about that. He has not been good to start the season. Hate to say it, but the slider is just not there for Sir Anthony right now. I'm not sure why that is. It wasn't quite there last year either. I don't know if I can keep blaming it on the pitch clock like I did last year too, and not getting comfortable because he had the injuries and all that. Like, I don't know. That is concerning. I mean, Sir Anthony, yeah, he's he limited it to just the one run, but I don't know. I'm concerned about Sir Anthony right now. I don't feel great about him. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say on him other than I'm concerned. So I'll leave it at that. But going back to Turnbull, yeah, I mean he's been so good so far to start the season. So I don't know. I mean, I'm curious to see how that transpires with Turnbull in the rotation and all that. And Drew says Martian Rojas had the backpack on for the big boys tonight. Absolutely. We'll get to that next before we turn it back to the bullpen. But Chris says Bohm is better than Arenado when they were matched up against each other. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly one of those Phils have owned the Cardinals types of things. So I'm all for it. I'm all for it, Chris. I love that comment. And Drew says Turnbull is a bona fide stud, already worth the contract. Yeah, exactly. I love what he's doing so far, Drew. I mean, that the contract, like you said, has been worth it, but he's just we both liked him when we had that pod when he signed with the Phillies. I was very excited, and I know Drew felt pretty much the same as I did. I thought it was a very smart move. You took a chance on a guy who, yeah, obviously the injuries had derailed him a little bit, but was a very, very solid major league pitcher to start his career. I'm a little worried that maybe the first 2 starts now are elevating some expectations on him and he may come back down to earth, but I'm not looking for him to do this every single start. I mean, I think ideally he's a 6-inning, 3-4 run guy. That's all I need him to be. And if he's more than that, awesome. I mean, that's a very pleasant surprise. But the Phillies have certainly brought a lot of pitchers in here. I'm not saying Turnbull's one of those guys. A lot of them usually get that high velocity, lack of control command type of label. And obviously Turnbull was lacking the control, I guess you could say, or the command, one or the other. I don't watch him enough, to be honest, when he was coming off the injuries. I only watched him a little bit before the injuries. But he was lacking one of the two, or just general location when he came back from Tommy John. And that does happen from time to time. But point being, the Phillies seem to have, now that he's healthier and he's in the building, it seems like maybe they did figure something out with him. I don't want to jump the gun, but I don't know. It's something to monitor. Ian says, don't want to overreact, but does it make me wonder if you keep him as your 5th starter and maybe move to a 6-man rotation? Even healthy Walker has early velo issues. Yeah, and to that point, Ian, I mean, you're getting Walker back right from the injury too. So I don't know if you have to go 6-man right away. I think they might do that later on in the season. I think I don't want to say they definitely will do that this season, but I think it would make a lot of sense. I know Wheeler doesn't really like going 6-man, but or having the extra day of rest. but I think it would help just for a couple weeks to manage some innings here and there. I don't think it's a bad thing to do for a little bit, just not the full season. And when Walker comes back, you could make the case, you know, him coming off the injury, maybe it would help to have an extra day. I don't know. You don't want to do it just for Taijuan, but I think at some point you could see a 6-man. Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. And like Ian said, obviously Walker cannot be a pen piece. It's just that's not going to work with the early inning velocity struggles, and his velocity is still not up there right now. I know he's still working back from the injury, and they're more focused on the movement. So don't want to overreact too much about that. But obviously, he was not good in the early innings last year, so I wouldn't think using him as a pen piece would work out very well, like you said. But like you said, it just seems weird to remove Turnbull from the rotation with the way he's dealing. Yeah, you don't want to ruin that either. So let's hope Taijuan does, not just because Turnbull's pitching well, but obviously you want him to heal up. So take the time. I hope he takes the time he needs. But also with how Turnbull's pitching, there's not pressure to come back. I mean, maybe he feels some pressure because Turnbull is pitching really well. I don't know. I can't look into the mind of Taijuan Walker without being him, but maybe he does feel some pressure. But regardless, from a team perspective, there's not pressure to bring him back with the way Turnbull's pitching right now. So I'm not really super concerned about that. I should say I'm not super concerned about getting Taijuan back right away, obviously, but the situation itself is interesting. And Drew says, even if he lasts until Ty is back and gets injured, which I hope isn't the case, he already did what you needed. Yep. Now I'm with you, Drew. I think he's been well worth the contract through 2 starts already. I mean, they won both the games he started. Obviously tonight he doesn't get the win on paper, but he's pitched so well to keep us in games and pitched well enough to get us 2 wins already. So I don't want to say like they didn't expect him to do anything at all, but considering you didn't really know what you were getting out of him, you did kind of take a flyer there, and you were kind of just hoping he'd be healthy and get back to his usual form. You've gotten a lot more than I think that you expected so far. And Jonathan says, welcome in, Jonathan, by the way. He says, Turnbull feels like the perfect project for Gotham. Seems to be working so far. Yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about, too. I mean, Gotham, man, that dude's been incredible for this organization. And if Turnbull's another one of those guys, man, that they're able to get in the building and fix some things, and he's able to turn his career around from the last couple of years of injuries, I mean, man, that would be special for sure. That'd be awesome. But I see some of you guys commenting about Rojas, Castellanos, so I do want to get to the lineup here. Actually, let me say one quick thing on Alvarado, because I think Hoffman Soto is kind of the back end of the game. So I want to say one thing about Alvarado. I think he's been locating pretty well lately. I feel like he's been hitting his spots. He's been hitting the corners of the strike zone. I really like what he did tonight. He does walk a guy. He is working deeper in accounts. I saw some people on Twitter saying that, and I think that's very fair to say. I wish I could reference the accounts. I should probably take more note of that in the future so I can give those guys credit. But I want to say it was Winkleman or Anthony Esbenson, one of the two. I'm not 100% sure. But regardless, he is working deeper in accounts right now, and that is a little bit concerning. He is, I think the same person said he would, and I agree, obviously not just agree, it's just a fact. He's a few ticks down in the velocity right now as well. So that is a little bit concerning for Alvarado, just long term. He's still very effective, even at 98, 99. I mean, I'm not super concerned. But that, like the person who I wish I'd had the tweet up right now so I could give him credit, but I agree with them. That could be the reason he's working a little deeper in accounts and not being quite as effective. So I don't know. They tried a little bit of a different formula tonight based on where they were in the order. They went Alvarado in the 8th and then Hoffman in the 9th. We'll get to Hoffman, though, but I see some of you guys commenting about the lineup, so I do want to talk about them. We already talked about it a little bit. The top of the lineup was an absolute zero tonight outside of Turner. Not an absolute zero. You had Trey Turner, but Schwarber and Harper, I guess, is what I'm kind of getting at here. Those guys really did nothing for you tonight. And I would say this, Schwarber had like a 950, I think it was like 958 expected batting average. And I know people hate that stat sometimes. Yeah. But when it's that high, you got to take note of it. I mean, he crushed that baseball. I want to say it was 108 off the bat. I don't know how it stayed in the yard. And I think his launch angle is 25. I think Ben Silver tweeted that out. Like, I don't know how that baseball didn't get out. So Schwarber was very close to breaking that game open in the 9th. Or was it the end of extra innings? I want to say it was the 9th that he hit that baseball. It was the 9th. I mean, he was right on it. 105 off the bat, 25-degree launch angle, and it goes 398 feet. I mean, you missed it by inches. So Schwarber almost made his contribution tonight. I'm glad it's at least not 0 for 5 with, 3 Ks, right? I mean, he had the 1K tonight, but he's putting the ball in play more. And that's what a lot of Schwarber babies have asked for over the past year or so. You're getting that right now. So there's that. And as far as Harper goes, he still worked 2 walks. So I guess I phrased it poorly when I said they were an absolute zero. It's just the bottom of the lineup was a story tonight. That's the much better way to put it. But Harper still gets on base a couple times. He comes around to score one of those times too. And Turner, man, I mean, I was very frustrated of having actually I was talking to Chris in our chat in the Discord about how he didn't move the runner over to start the 10th inning. He hits the ball to the right side. And let me actually take a look what that pitch was and where it was pitched, because that was annoying to me. It's something Trey does not do a good enough job at. It's a ground ball. So yeah, it's more so on the outside part of the plate. Not only yes, I shouldn't even say, I should say yes, he did have 2 strikes on him. So even more reason to be taking that to the right side. So you had a chance to move the runner over there. It's middle of the plate, but a little bit on the outside part of the plate. 98 miles an hour. You're probably going to be late on it, and it's 2 strikes. You got to put that on the right side. I don't have an excuse for him there. That's got to be put on the right side, and you got to move the runner over. Now, that being said, they still got the job done there. I want to say, I honestly am forgetting. My thoughts are kind of jumbled right now. That's right. They intentionally walked Harper. I was like, I don't think Harper did anything of note at the plate in the extra inning. And then the Bohm double came, like we talked about earlier. So, yeah, I mean, good piece of hitting for Bohm. He didn't even get the best piece of it, but he hits it down the line, and he needed that too. He had made a couple tough outs the past few games, and I think he definitely needed that. So very pleased with how that worked out in the extra innings. Obviously, you get it done. I don't care how you get it done. I thought there were a lot of weak contact hits tonight, and it felt very rewarding after that Braves series, and honestly, the start of the season of just so much hard contact, just right at the first baseman, right at the right center, left fielder, like so many tough breaks to start the season. So I'm going to take tonight's win, even though it wasn't the prettiest offensively. They did do some damage with some of the weak contact and just putting the. And there's my internet buffering for the night. So I was due for one of those. I can't go one stream without my internet buffering at least once. I apologize, but I'm back now. So, but I was on Castellanos. He has, I mean, I've seen little signs of life, but mostly zero. Like not much there. Like I get it. It's a 2-week cold streak, but it's one of those things where there's some things at the plate, the way he's approaching the at bats, where I'm just like, I don't know if this is going to get better the next 2 weeks either. So I hope it's just a little bit of a slump to start the season. But I'm really low on Castellanos right now, and I like Castellanos. It's just I don't know if I see much improvement there with the way things are going right now. But speaking of the rest of the order, and also Stott, also it was good to see him still get that sac fly in the extra inning, because I think he's had a number of baseballs that have been hit fairly well, or he's made the right approach where he's taking the ball the opposite way. And he actually got a pretty decent piece on the sac fly too. Like I want to say it was lined right out to the outfield, right on the barrel. So yeah, I mean, not 90 off the bat. I mean, not the hardest hit baseball, but it was hit pretty well in my opinion. And he gets a run in there. That was good to see for him, because I don't think his numbers are very indicative of the way he's been swinging the bat to start this season. He's only hitting 200 at the plate right now. We all know he's been hitting better than that. I'm not really worried about Stott. But it was good to see him get a ribby on the board there, and it was well deserved in my opinion too. But how about Marsh tonight, man? I mean, 2 for 4. The guy's just crushing the baseball right now. Hits a very important insurance run, because we lose this game if he doesn't hit that home run in the 9th. So that's huge to see him come up in this type of game where you need to get back to 500, and it's a low scoring affair. And he's the source of offense tonight, right? Him and Rojas, and we'll get to Rojas. But 2 for 4, comes around and scored both times. Obviously, one was the home run, but that's what you want Marsh to do. I mean, He's a guy you want him to get on base. You want him to be a weapon on the base paths. And man, I'm very pleased with what he did tonight and what he's been doing this season too. Obviously, he just misses robbing the Ivan Herrera home run and then gets that catch in the 10th inning. I mean, unbelievable play. That ball got on him in a hurry. Makes a nice leaping catch out there and left. I mean, that guy, if he does play left field the whole year, again, I will keep saying this, he's going to win a Gold Glove. I'm that confident in him in left field. He's so good out there. I love what Marsh's been doing to start the season, man. I mean, he's honestly been one of our best players, if we're being for real. I think Corey Sabin tweeted out, in a Phillies uniform, Marsh is hitting 280. I think he's played 162 games in a Phillies uniform now. I'll check on that to make sure, but regardless, we kind of have a full sample size of games with the Philadelphia Phillies now. And man, has he delivered in a Phillies uniform. I mean, he's been awesome. We have more than 162, so that should be noted. But point being, I mean, he's been so good in a Phillies uniform to start his career here, and he's only gotten better. So Marsh tonight, A+. Love what he's doing at the plate right now. And then also shout out Garrett Stubbs. He does get that nice single to right field. Again, putting the ball where the defenders aren't. Not particularly hard hit, but nothing hit by Garrett Stubbs is very hard hit. And he comes around to score in that inning too. So shout out to Garrett Stubbs. He did his part tonight. I mean, it's all I'm asking from him at the plate. If he gets on and scores, I'm more than satisfied with the Garrett Stubbs for the game. And then Rojas, man, I mean, he's the story of the night. Gets that double early on, pulls it down the left field line. I think it was 108 off the bat. Easily the best hit baseball he's had of this year, and I think it might have been of his career. I'd have to go back and confirm that for sure. But wow, I mean, that was scorched, and that's an encouraging sign for sure to see him do that. I'm just really disappointed they didn't score him. They had a prime opportunity there. Am I surprised? No, because that's what the Phillies do. They waste opportunities like that. And if we didn't win that game, I probably wouldn't have such a positive tone about it and be laughing about it. But that's the reality. They didn't score him in that spot. But then he comes up later, first pitch swinging. It's a slider. It's out of the zone, 70 miles an hour off the bat. And he just pokes it out there, right? I mean, yeah, he gets fooled a little bit on the slider, but he makes contact with it and he hits it at the right side. Like we were talking about with Trey and his at bat in extra innings, Johan does the opposite. Didn't even have 2 strikes on him, but it was outside part of the plate. You had a runner on third. If you put the ball in play, you're probably getting that run home. I think it was a double play situation. I think it was 1 out. And you're probably going to get the first base, but he does the smart thing, hits it to the right side, and it gets through for a single. So well-deserved ribby there for him to start, I think it was the first one of the season, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it was. Yeah, I'll have to check that. But, yeah, it was. So Rojas, another guy, like, just very pleased with his performance tonight. Made a heck of a catch early in the game, too. I mean, that we just expect that of him. But, it was good to see him doing what he's supposed to do. Like, that's why he's here playing center field tonight. And then he also has the infield single later. And that's another thing. Like, obviously it almost got through to left field, but that's the thing. If a shortstop's got to try to backhand and throw across the diamond, even Mason Wynn, who's got one of the stronger arms of any infielder in baseball, probably, he's still going to get the first base. So that's what Rojas does, man. I mean, yeah, the first infield single that was hit 52 miles an hour, that was disappointing because that was his first hit of the season. You're like, well, that's not necessarily an encouraging sign, but on a night like this where he does have 2 encouraging signs here, and he has had some more positive, I think he's had some more positive, I'm trying to look for another word other than signs, but I mean, that's really the only thing I can think of right now. Sorry guys, my vocab is limited, but that's really the only, there's been more positive signs as of late. So I'm encouraged by Rojas and I'm encouraged by the results coming tonight. I'm glad they did come tonight. And hopefully it's a confidence boost for him because he needed that. And I don't know if he's going to carry this over into the rest of the week. I don't know if this is just a one-off. It very well could be. I'm not saying this is going to be the case where he's going to get a hit, go on a 10-game hit streak or whatever right now. Like there have been signs of improvement, but I sure hope it is. I'm hoping that Rojas is able to turn the corner here and that he slowly makes improvements and adjusts to Major League hitting because they're going to give him time. They really are. Like he's I'm not going to say he's a super long leash, but he has a longer leash than a guy in his situation normally would. And that's because the Phillies have a lot of belief in him. So we'll see if that pans out. But tonight, yeah, I mean, I'll give him an A+ because he deserved it. And I don't know how many A+ I'm going to give out to him especially as a hitter throughout the season, even if he does figure it out. But yeah, shout out to Rojas, man. I mean, he had a great game. Get to view these comments before we get to Hoffman, what happened there, and then also Soto. And we already talked about kind of the hitting in the extra inning. So kind of went a little out of order. Sorry for that, guys. Chris says, why don't we find some blackmail on the Angels and trade Casty, tie in a ton of prospects for Trout and Trout can play right field? Yeah, and even as someone who doesn't necessarily want Trout, watching Castellanos play has definitely made me say, all right, like, yeah, can we find a way to make this work? Like with the Trout trade, that would be ideal. But it doesn't. I don't think that's happening anytime soon. But yeah, it's been rough, man. It's been rough. Rough start to the season for Castellanos, and unfortunately, Mike does not want out of LA, and he believes in the front office there for some reason. So they're not off to the worst start, actually. But I mean, they've had good starts before. we have seen what has happened to the Angels before. So got to this one already. Rojas with the 2 hits. Eclipse syndrome. Yeah, man. I mean, it is funny. Like the Eclipse seemed to get him going today. So yeah, I don't know. Definitely not occurrence. I actually got 3 hits tonight. But someone on Twitter wants Soto to be the closer. Thoughts? Absolutely not right now. Does he have the potential? Yes. Has he done it before? Yes. I still think he's been a little bit shaky. I certainly think he's been better. I mean, he's been much better this year for sure. But there's still times where I'm like, ooh, he got away with a pitch there, or ooh, that wasn't a competitive pitch. But I'm not going to complain about him tonight. I thought he was very, very solid tonight. I'm very much pleased with what he did. I mean, he gave up the 1 hit, but he didn't even let their ghost runner score. So shout out to him, man. He gets a couple of big Ks there. And the last strike, I mean, that was in a great spot, where they had to go out of the zone to try and go get it, but it was right on the border as well. And it's tough to catch up to 98 at that, right on the, outside part of the plate. It's not easy. I want to say he threw a sinker there. Maybe it was a 4-seam. I don't know. I'm actually going to check that real quick, but he definitely can't be the closer. Not right now, at least. You can't overreact to one game, and that's what our fan base does. I mean, it's so typical. Actually, yeah, it was a 4-seam, 99.5, right above the high and outside corner of the zone. Wow, that couldn't have been placed any better. Yeah, he's definitely looked better this season. Maybe he earns it down the road, but again, I'm fine with the closer by committee approach unless you get someone at the deadline who you feel like can be that guy in the 9th, and it's just, all right, this guy's taking the end of the game, which I would love if we did that this year. I think this would be the year to do it too. I think we have some pieces to move if we want to get that type of guy. Ben, I know you and me both want Ryan Helsley, so that would be ideal. But I'm not ruling out Soto could become the closer at some point, but I'm not going to say after tonight, he should be the closer. And I think that's a major overreaction. Obviously, there's a lot of fans upset with Rob for the way he handled the bullpen tonight again. It's April. Are we really going to do this again this whole year where we have the Eagles fans who don't watch until the Phillies are good? They didn't watch the rebuild, and they don't watch a lot of baseball. I'm sorry. The gloves are coming off. Are we really going to do this where they're complaining about the bullpen decisions and everything in freaking April when the season just started? And look, there are certainly some interesting decisions Rob has made in the playoffs, but I think for the most part, he has been very, very good in the playoffs, and he has gotten us there too. And I think he's taking the right approach getting us there as well. And you don't want to overuse guys in April. That's not an argument I'm going to make tonight because most of the guys were ready to go. But anyway, sorry, Ben. I know that wasn't what you were saying, but I had to get that off my chest. It aggravates me. But if you are one of those people and you're in here, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to come at you. I respect your opinion. That's just my opinion. So Ian says on the broadcast, RAJ, Ruben Amaro Jr. made the comment as Bryce was trying to run the first base that he was much slower than usual. I also did take note of that, Ian, when he said that, and that normally he beats out that throw. Do you think he may be hurting? He may be, Ian. It may be the back. I'm not sure. I am a little bit concerned. I'm not going to say anything because obviously I don't know for sure, but I'm glad you brought that up, Ian, because I did want to mention that. And yeah, it is a little bit concerning, and you're just praying it's nothing serious if there is something going on there, but who knows. Little G, welcome in. Good to see a big Phillies win tonight. And yeah, there was a conversation to keep Turnbull in the 7th, but like I said earlier, I think it was the right move to take him out. He was at 82. He maybe would have had another batter or two, and he's gotten some confidence back now. He gave you 6 clean, very dominant innings. And he's coming off a couple of years of injuries, too. You don't want to overwork the guy. You're going to need him this year, whether in the pen or in the rotation. I'm okay with taking him out on that spot, especially in April. I think it makes sense. Jonathan says that was probably the best swing I've seen Rojas take since he's been up. Absolutely, Jonathan. I mean, that one looked confident for sure. So he turned on that baseball. That I love that. Drew says he's off the bed. I'm sure he probably already is gone by now. But Drew, appreciate you tuning in. We will have you back on ASAP. So it was good to see you in the chat though. And like Drew said, we appreciate every single one of you tuning in every night and listening to me and Drew. We really do appreciate you guys. We're just on here, like Drew said, we're rambling, talking about the Phils, but we appreciate each and every one of y'all. And yeah, like Drew said, we got the Discord here. If you guys aren't in it, make sure to join. A lot of good Philly sports talk going on in there. We'll see if the Flyers can maybe muster some energy for these last 4 games and sneak their way in. But we've been having a lot of conversations about that. It's not encouraging right now. So, Sully says too early for a Cassie standing ovation. If anything can bring him out of a slump, it's the city he loves. It could be the difference. Yeah. I just think the Trey ovation was like a one-time thing. And we saw, and I'm not saying Cassie's not working on anything, but we saw a guy in Trey who was working so hard on his craft and in the cages after all those brutal games where he made mistakes and out on the field trying to clean things up. And he had just lost all confidence. Cassie's a guy, like, I'm sure he does lose some confidence. He doesn't really show it as much though. And he has a little bit of a different personality. You could see Trey was broken mentally after that Marlins game last year. And it was the city rallying behind him saying, look, we got you here for 13 more years. We got to pick you up and we're going to pick you up. And we believe in you, man. I think it's a little bit different, especially Castellanos is on a 5-year deal. He's got 3 more years left. I think the Cassie thing, like, people were angry at Trey for sure. But I think they also understood, like, he felt the same way too. He was angry at himself. So I think it's a little bit different in that there's more anger towards Castellanos and frustration with him. Whereas Trey, it's like you could kind of feel what he was feeling at that point too. You can tell it just wasn't there mentally. So yeah, I mean, Alvarado's going to close out games for sure at some point, Star Wars. I could see that, but I think it's going to be dependent on what part of the order is up and matchups and all that type of stuff. And I don't think Alvarado will be the guy as the closer, but I think he will certainly close out games. Chris says Mets beat the Braves tonight too. It was just a wonderful night. Yeah, I didn't even see that, so that's huge. Love to see the Braves go down. I mean, that is awesome, man. Especially to the Mets. I mean, the Mets have not been good to start the season, and I'd imagine we're a game and a half back now of the Braves. I think we were 2.5 coming into tonight. Yeah, so they're 6-3 now. That hasn't updated in the standings. So we're 2 games back of the Braves. Excuse me. Or no, it hasn't updated at all. We should be a game and a half. Yeah, game and a half back of the Braves right now. Obviously, it's early. You're not going to worry about that too much, but I like to keep an eye on it. The Mets will actually be. I think they'll be 2.5. So I mean, somehow the Mets, after they had a really rough start to the season, but they've gotten a couple wins recently. So credit to them. But Sully, thank you for tuning in, man. Appreciate you. Thank you so much for the support lately. We really do appreciate it, man. And yeah, God bless you too, brother. Thank you for tuning in to the post game. But I'm probably going to hop off here soon, guys. We got 11 people in here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you got any questions you want me to answer before I head out, I can go up to 40 minutes if we need to, 45. But after that, I will probably call it. But yeah, if you got any questions, drop them in the chat. Let me know. I'll answer them before I hop off. But overall, a very good win tonight. And, we didn't get to Hoffman. Hoffman just didn't have it tonight. But I'm a little concerned there. He was hanging his slider when it was in the zone. I mean, he got away with 2 to Mason Wynn with 2 outs. And then he throws the next one in essentially the same spot, but he elevates it a little bit and makes it even more hittable. I don't know. I don't know what the plan was there. You got away with 2 sliders, in my opinion, right in the zone. Granted that, I'm not saying they were the worst pitches. I mean, they were at the bottom of the zone, but they were certainly hittable. And it just felt like it was floating up there tonight. Like I didn't feel like his slider was getting by guys like it usually does. And I would have much rather him gone with some high heat there or, tried the fastball at a different part of the zone. I didn't know why they went back to the slider a third time. Maybe that was just the sequence they had planned for Mason Wynn. I don't know. Maybe they knew something about Mason Wynn that we didn't. That's very possible. Regardless, his slider was not getting by many guys tonight. And it felt like every time he wasn't in the strike zone, he was well out of it. So Hoffman was not good tonight. He was a little tough to watch, and he wasn't the best the last outing, as actually Ben, who's in the chat, noticed or took note of that. He wasn't the best his last outing, even though he was, on the box score, he was fine. I'm not going to say I'm worried about him. Hoffman is awesome. I mean, he has been so good for us over the past year and the start of this year. And I believe in his stuff. I believe in his mentality. I have a lot of faith in him, but just didn't like what we saw tonight from him. So maybe he just needs a little bit of rest. We don't really have many off days until we don't have an off day until the 18th. So maybe he just needs to rest a little bit, get back to it. It's a long season. We're going to need him to pitch a good number of innings this year. But regardless, he wasn't good tonight, and he worked himself into multiple 3-0 counts to where he had to battle back, and that didn't help him either. So, yeah, I didn't think it looked like a splitter. I felt like his splitter was not in the zone necessarily. Like it wasn't necessarily in the zone either. But I certainly thought it was his slider that was hanging up there. Regardless, it was in the zone for very long. And yeah, I think I would agree. I think the broadcast was probably incorrect. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a pitching genius, but I thought it looked more like a slider than a splitter. And I don't know. I mean, I was asking for him to throw the splitter more often, and that was my complaint. Let's take a look at these. I'm not going to go through every single at bat, but I'm curious I'd imagine the Brennan Donovan double came off the slider. No, they called it a splitter on MLB game or on game day too. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe his splitter wasn't the best tonight either. Maybe it was just I took more note of the slider not being good. Regardless, I didn't think any of his pitches played well. So I mean, I thought his slider got hit around too. Was the Mason Winn at bat? Did they call that a splitter too? I thought that was most definitely the two before the last pitch. I thought were most definitely sliders. I thought the third pitch was a slider too. Maybe I'm incorrect. Yeah, they called all three of those sliders. So that was the at bat I was more so referencing than the Brennan Donovan one. But yeah, regardless, I mean, just didn't have it tonight. None of his pitches played well. So I'm hoping it's just a one-off. That reminded me. The other thing I wanted to say about Turnbull was, and I think Ben Silver tweeted it out. I noted this on our podcast last week too. It feels like at points he is falling off to his left when he's trying to get in the zone at some points. And Ben Silver noted that it was with 2 strikes, which I didn't note that on the podcast. I just noted that he was doing that some of the time. So credit to Ben Silver. He pointed out that it's been with 2 strikes. And I did, after he said that, I did start to notice it in the game. He's definitely fallen off to the left of the mound. And you want to see him just stay balanced there, right? Not try to throw it as hard as he can. Maybe it's a little bit of, oh my gosh, I'm pitching so well right now. I just want to get this by this guy, right? And maybe he feels like with the velocity dipping, maybe he wants to get a little bit of that back. I don't know. But I did notice that with Turnbull. So just something to keep an eye on. Like Jonathan said, not concerned with Hoffman. Off night for him. Right. It's going to happen. And you can't just blame every bad bullpen night on the manager. There's 162 games. Every single team is going to have a bad bullpen night here and there. It just happens. The best relievers in the league have a bad night every once in a while. It happens. I'm not saying Hoffman's one of the best in the league just yet, but point being, you can even have Josh Hader. Look at him. I mean, he's had his off years before too. It happens. Relief pitching is very, I guess, is volatile the right word? It can change in an instant. So you can't just blame the manager for every bad bullpen game. But that's going back to the rant I was having before. Anyway, Soto, again, I kind of talked about him. I don't have too much to add on what I already said about Gregory Soto. But yeah, I mean, look, I thought this was it was a win. And it wasn't the prettiest one. They got the job done. That's all you care about. They got back to 500. I would like to see them take this series for sure. I would be very disappointed if they did not. Tomorrow would be a great day to do it. Sonny Gray is making his first start of the year coming off the injured list. So I would hope you take advantage of that. Even if you don't hit well off of him, he's probably not going to go super, super deep into the game unless you let him. And Wheeler's on the mound. Can we get a win with Wheeler on the mound? He has put together 2 really good starts to start the season, and we haven't backed him up. So it would be nice if he got a win in the win-loss column. So that's what I'll say on tomorrow's game. And then leave it to Wednesday. Like, if you lose Wednesday, okay. I think this is a series. You probably should have swept the National Series, but I would like if you could sweep the series. I'm not super scared of Lance Lynn. We will see how Nola looks on Wednesday. It'll be a good test for him after he had a rough start to start the season and a better start against the Nationals. But you got to win the series. I mean, there's no reason you shouldn't win at least one of the next 2. And I would go as far to say you should probably sweep it, but it's not the end of the world if you don't. But let's get over 500 tomorrow. Let's focus on that. Chris, I'll get to your comment and then I'll hop off here. It says, keeping in perspective, Turnbull has benefited from some favorable umpiring. I'm glad you brought this up because there were multiple strikeouts tonight. He probably should have had like 4 strikeouts if we're being real. Now, granted, maybe he, even if those are called balls, maybe he still comes back and gets a punch out. I don't know. But regardless, the first game, like you said, the zone was also all over the place, and he has definitely benefited for sure. But I also don't think that takes away from the success he has had. He's been really good. And like you said, that's part of the IQ of the game too, is where is the umpire calling? All right, if I can get it out of the zone and get away with it and he's going to call it there, I'm going to be smart and put it there, right? So that's part of it too. So you're adjusting as a pitcher and as a batter as the game goes on to what zone the umpire is calling. But can we also just acknowledge, I feel like we talk about this every year, but this year has been even more so. The umpiring to start the Phillies games this year has just been flat out garbage, and there is no excuse for it. They need to implement that challenge system ASAP. Like I want that here tomorrow, yesterday even. Like it should be here already. It's worked in the minor leagues. That should be implemented if they're not going to do robo-umps. But anyway, thank you guys all so much for tuning in. I went longer than I even thought I would. I was kind of just rambling at the end. I was rambling the whole time, but thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Tune in. I don't know if I'll be live tomorrow. Drew may be. We'll see. If we're not live after tomorrow's game, I won't be able to actually go live on Wednesday either. So I may not be live the next couple of days. So it's probably good that I took note of that before we wrapped up here. But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Past couple of days, I'll at least be live later in the week. And appreciate you too, Chris. Appreciate everyone who tuned in. Thank you guys so much as always. And yeah, God bless you guys. Have a good night and have a good week. See ya. Peace.